So today on Covenant Couples, we're going to talk about the topic blended families. Now, what do we mean by blended families, Sharon?
We mean people who have remarried, have stepchildren, and just children from other marriages.
So obviously, when there's a blended family situation, normally, without trying to stereotype, it's normally the woman that brings in the children to the marriage where the children get to live with them. But obviously, we're talking about this topic for situations where the man's bringing the children into the relationship where when they get married, they're going to live together. So, in terms of blended families, what are some of the things we can talk about as, just things that maybe people have either battled with or people need to be aware of if they've just recently gotten married again?
Well, when you've got people who just got married again, like us, who have children from different relationships, different marriages, it depends on how old the children are. If they're young children and they're coming in with their mother, it's them getting used to having a new stepfather. It's also if a man brings them in, it's also getting used to a stepmother, and it's also a relationship between the other partner as well, because the children have got two families now. You have to work together with when they go to see the other parent and how they react when they come home and how to discipline them, and it's really hard to get that in perspective when they're not your children.
And for me personally, I am one of those occasions where I was the husband who had children that come into this marriage. And, even though Sharon and I got a good marriage, it still presented some challenges when my children come to stay with us, when my children come to live with us. Sometimes you can feel divided loyalties between what the kids are saying, depending on the age. It could be children, could be teenagers. And obviously that's really hard for the woman too. But, like from our perspective and what we navigated, I was the father who had children, biological children who came and lived with us. For us personally, Sharon's kids were growing up. They've had their own kids and stuff like that later. So for me personally, I would suggest that if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're the guy or the lady, that, as anything, you just need to be aware of the fact that it may be tough at first because you feel like the child, be they a young child or a teenager, is rejecting you or they don't want to know you. Have you got some ideas on what we can talk about in terms of when you first get married and you find yourself in a situation where you are the step parent, Sharon, and the child or the teenager is going to be part of that marriage? Have you got some ideas or some things that you've become aware of that you think would be helpful to people that are the actual step parent in the marriage?
Well, as you said, Chris, with your children, when one of them come to live with us for a couple of years, he was in his mid-teens, and the problem with him was that he had a disability of being a high functioning autistic. So it was hard. It was just becoming to get to know his disability, how he reacted, and also with his other daughter who came to live with us. She was a little bit older. It's also the resentment, because they have a lot of resentment, not just to you, but to their father or their mother, and what's happened in the relationship and how they feel within what's happened in their mum and dad's marriage. So it's kind of you have to kind of be very gentle with them and try and listen to them and try and navigate around them so that you can work around them and let you show them that you're not going to be mean to them or you're not going to be hard on them, but let them realise that you also respect them as much as they was going to respect you.
And one of the things that you've said to me before, and I think it's worth mentioning and it's worth bringing up, we kind of call it a transition plan. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if you're in a marriage relationship and you are finding that your child or your teenager, be they a male child or a female child, they're going to go and stay with the other parent. They're going to go and spend some time, obviously, with the other parent. And so Sharon and I spoke about the idea of having what we call a transition plan. And that simply because the cultural behavioural expectations of the other parent could be so much different to yours. And it's so easy to assume that when the child comes back into the home, that they're going to just fit in back into the mould. And so one of the ideas that we had, Sharon and I, was to have like a transition plan. And that is, some of the tips that we come up with was give them that time and space. Realise they're not necessarily going to be automatically back on the same page as you guys when you come back. Have you got something else that maybe you could add to that, Sharon? We did used to call this a transition plan. What were some of the strategies that we felt may help when our child stayed with the other biological parent? You got something that you want to share on that, please?
Yeah, well, what we used to do is we used to just let them have their own space, as Chris said. And also, if they wanted to talk, if they wanted to discuss with us or talk to us about what happened while they were at the other parent's house, how they felt, sometimes they didn't have a very good time and they came back quite upset or angry, or they were upset and angry because they had to come back. So you let them talk out, let them speak to you, even give them space until they're ready to come out and talk to you, and just put them at ease to know that they're back here, they're safe, and if they did have a bad issue or a bad experience at the other parent's house, something happened, they got quite angry, they let them know that here is a safe space and they can talk to us, and they know that they're going to be fine, and then nothing's going to happen to them when they're here.
And the other thing that I would like to say is be careful what you hear, because if the child comes back into the home and it's become obvious to you that the other parent has spoke negatively about you, don't react to the child. Don't mention anything. Just listen, just be understanding. Obviously, you may be upset that the other parent has run you down or someone says something negatively. It's really important not to put your child in that position where you are making them aware how upset you are or how angry you are. Even if you have to say a little prayer, that's really important, that when the child comes back into the home, that they don't have to experience your negative feelings towards their mum or their dad. I really can't stress that enough, because that's something I had to learn. I just had to go, or okay, or yeah, or all right. And so just give them that time where they might want to vent. Okay, that's something that I would say would be really important, and something that I want to talk about, and because, as I said, this is my second marriage, but it's not the first time I've encountered a stepchild. And probably one of the things that I would say to any guy that's finding themselves recently remarried is don't try to be the disciplinarian. Try to respect and understand the relationship that's there. Obviously, if you love the woman, you love the children. Take an interest. Do something with them. Find out the things that they enjoy doing. It could be playing basketball. It could be going to the footy. It doesn't have to be something that you love doing. But what's important is you realise the child loves doing it. So I just want to encourage any newly married couple where that's the fact, where you're marrying into a situation. And I've met guys who've married women, they've got 2 kids or 3 kids already, and I've seen the most successful occasions have been where the guy's been patient, where he hasn't immediately tried to set the tone for the home, but he's just understood. Tried to understand. Don't take it personally if they're reacting to you. You're not my father, or I hate you, or what do you know? Just don't try to not to take that personally. That would be my advice. And really just try to build the friendship, and just understand that, even though it is God's ideal design, that man is the head of the home, you're not necessarily going to have that. You've got to be patient. You've got to pray, and you've got to just try to love, and just try to be Jesus to these kids. Just pray, ask the Holy Spirit for help. That's really important too. Just anything else that, like for yourself, Sharon, because I know this is an important topic to you. Is there any other things that you want to share that you just think could be helpful for people to be aware of? It may be there's couples that have been married for quite a while and they keep butting their heads up against teenage children. Teenage children can be quite challenging for any couple. Even if they're both your biological kids, they can be tough and challenging. Any tips or suggestions for especially girls, or that are going through that really tough time where they don't know who they are anymore and they want to lash out? Any wisdom that you want to share on that?
Well, I've had boys, so I've just find with boys when they're going through their hormone period, when they're going through a period in their teenage years where they just don't want to be with anybody, just give them their space, let them do let them be by themselves, let them do what they want to do. Girls, probably the same. Girls can be slightly different. I've never had girls, so it's very hard for me to actually say how to do that. But as far as when I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was just be on my own. I just used to want to be in my room, spend some time with my friends. I didn't want mum and dad in the way. But then again, it depends on the child itself. But one thing I did want to say is about step parents is don't disrespect the other parent in front of the child. If the child is being picked up by the other parent, or if you're dropping them off at the other parent, be respectful, because it's just showing you to the stepchild or to your child that you respect the parent and you don't have any grievances against them. So it just shows them that it gives them an idea of how to, it will help them respect you as well. If you respect their mother or their father, if you're the step parent, then they understand that you're not going to, that you respect them as well, and that you're not going to do anything bad to them, that they can understand, they feel safe with you. Because if you respect their parent, then they're going to help, hopefully they will respect you. If you disrespect their parent, then they're going to think, well, who are you? You're disrespecting my mother, or you're disrespecting my father. They're my mum and dad. Who are you? Who do you think you are? So just show, you may not like what they're doing, you may not like the way they act when they're with you, bring up their children. If you're a step parent, you may not like the fact that their real parent is doing the wrong thing, but you don't need to let the child know that. They need to know that you respect them, and so they will understand that you're not going to do any harm to them.
And it's also realising that it can be very confusing for any teenagers, but obviously if you're marrying into a relationship where there's already teenagers on the scene, it's not impossible, but it's going to be tough to negotiate that. And it's really important that you've got people that you can speak to, that you trust and respect, and hopefully you've got some good pastoral counsel going on. But you just understand and realise that it will take time. It will take time, and it's not easy for teenagers to adjust to any new situation, especially when it involves their parent, if it involves their mother. But just be mindful that a covenant relationship is how we define marriage. So it's just also remembering that you have entered into that covenant, and it's so important that you be united, but you still need to be able to share your concerns with each other about the way the step parent is communicating or behaving or acting. But just to back up what Sharon said, don't ever do it in front of the child or the teenager. And just, as long as your intentions are good and you want what's best for the child, that's really all the biological parent wants to see, that you love their child, that you just want what's best for them. And, talk about it, keep open communications with each other about it, like anything else in marriage, and pray about these things together. I think that's really, really important, that you pray about these things together. Talk about them in privately and pray about these things together, especially if they're the party that's never been married before. Maybe you could be marrying someone that's got kids already, and I think it's a very noble thing when a man marries a single mother with kids already. But also just being patient with yourself. It's a big thing to adjust to. Don't expect too much from yourself. Be kind to each other and support each other and love each other, because that's what being in covenant relationships all about. Trying to give that grace to each other and just asking the Holy Spirit for guidance and help in all things. In all things. He is our teacher in all things. So that's the most important thing that I just want to close off by saying, that we do live in a world today where blended families are such a common reality, where sadly, even in the church, you've got 50 to 60% divorce rate. But that doesn't mean that you can't have the kind of covenant couple relationship in your marriage where your kids can't be helped and navigated through the difficulty of transitioning and coming together. Once I saw something on 60 Minutes years and years ago that said, blended families don't blend, they curdle. And I would just like to dispute that, because with the right heart, with the spiritual help from the Holy Spirit, with loving each other and supporting each other, I believe you can navigate your way through anything through God's help. God bless you.
God bless you.